following is a Galactic Digital Studios production. This is Life Talk, part of the Closing Tag Network. So, it's been a minute. It's been a little while since we've done, just one of these podcasts where we just sit down and chat. This is Life Talk, part of the Closing Tag Network. And considering all the negativity and all the, just absolute vitriol in the world, which this is not the podcast for that, I figured it's probably now a good time to bring some positivity, if I can talk, into the world. Bring some positivity into our lives. And part of it is, I've made no bones and made no secrets about why I do this podcast. I've got the sports podcast. That has been, just crazy right now. I have the news desk podcast, which, I've got plenty of material for that. Believe me. I've got the tech podcast. I've got, Tech Time. I've got Game Stream. I've got, all these different podcasts. Ring the Bell. SummerSlam's coming up. So why do I do this podcast? Well, it's simple. It's, cathartic for me. Clearly, if it wasn't benefiting me, I would not be doing it. Period. But it's also to help you. And it's also to help, it's like I always say at the end of every podcast on this channel. If my words of wisdom can reach at least 5 people per episode, I feel like I would have just done a service to the world. And that's what I'm trying to do today. Because like I said, this is a very vitriolic, very negative time that we're living in right now. And I don't feel like we view enough that's going on positively in our world. Now, I've shared in the past some of my secrets on how I've managed to take 5 minutes out of a day and say, okay, today wasn't great. Today wasn't, fantastic. It wasn't even good. But here are a couple things that went right today that I should focus more on and be grateful for. And I think a lot of it has to from, past experiences. I have had a very interesting road to get to where I am right now. And I've always said the road's not done yet. The next stage of my life, it's currently under construction. You see the orange cones, you see the bright, LED sign that says construction underway. Road coming soon. That sort of thing. And it is both cathartic and also beneficial for me to say, okay, I don't like where I'm at now, which is why I'm looking ahead, looking at the road that's currently under construction. But I also want to spend some time looking at the rearview mirror and see what has led me to this point. And I want to share some of that with you today. I don't have very many words of wisdom, but I'm hoping that you will take some of my life experiences without going too much into detail on them and maybe say, okay, this guy's been through some things. And maybe there's something to this. Maybe, yeah, my life's not great right now either, but at least I'm not at this stage. So, right out of high school, I ended up enlisting with the United States Air Force. And I was fully prepared to go in, do what I need to do, and be a member of the armed forces and, help serve this country. And things didn't work out as well as I had hoped. There were some medical issues that were coming up. There were a number of instances where I was falling asleep in class. I fell asleep at one point in ranks. Imagine how hard, practically impossible it is to fall asleep as you're standing at attention. Yes, that happened. And the higher-ups didn't really want anything to do with it. They didn't want to risk sending someone that was clearly not physically, in the right mindset or the right physical ability to throw in a foxhole. This was before 9/11, by the way. Sorry to date myself, but yeah. This was well before 9/11 was even a thing. And basically said, okay, let's cut him loose. And I was medically released. There was no discharge. There was no, there was no official confirmation that I was ever a member of the armed forces. Basically, it was a, we don't know you, you don't know us. Let's go our separate ways. We'll pay for your flight home. Which they did. And from there, I fell into a pretty deep depression. Like, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to say anything to anyone. My mom at the time, rest her soul, she pulled me out of it. And basically said, there is more than one way for you to achieve what you're hoping to achieve. And so I picked myself up. I went back to school, got into school to do what I needed to do to get at least a degree. That was my goal, was to at least get a degree. Well, those medical problems came creeping back up. And I was basically suspended from attending school for a little while. So I ended up seeking help. I ended up, just basically saying, okay, enough is enough. I need to figure out what's going on here. And I'm glad I did. Now, at the time, they had diagnosed me with narcolepsy. But it was starting to get to a point where, years down the road, by the way, I completed school in the middle of all of this, by the way. Didn't get a degree, but the experience was probably the most important part. But years down the road, I was experiencing a lot of headaches, a lot of really bad, nasty migraines, especially while I was working swing shift. And, I thought nothing of it. I basically was like, okay, I'll just go, to, I forget what it's called. Like, it's like a on-site medical care facility. And, take a 20-minute nap and then come back and do what I need to do. I was eating up a lot of my sick time. So I was trying my best to not let that, affect me or whatnot. It wasn't until like several years later, and I don't like jumping back and forth, but it wasn't until several years later that I had realized, this isn't narcolepsy. This is something more. Raul Smith here. I just wanted to kind of throw this addendum in here real quick. I was supposed to follow up on this as I was recording, but I didn't. The event ended up being what's called severe sleep apnea. Basically, what it means is there's not enough oxygen going to the brain as I'm sleeping. So this is something that I'm still dealing with today, but I neglected to mention this as part of the episode. I'm working at this time. This was probably about 7 years after I graduated school. I ended up going in that time to work at the IRS as a seasonal employee. Well, seasonal employees still get, the health benefits and whatnot. So, sign me up. All the stories that you hear about how the federal government has amazing health benefits for their employees, that is 100% true. So, several years of that, and I won't bore you with the details. I won't bore you with all the ins and outs or whatever, but there was a federal investigation for fraud open against my mother, which in turn was opened against me and my nephew. We were all living, roughly together at the same time. And basically, my mother had frauded the housing authority. Again, I won't go into too many details, but it was a pretty significant amount. We'll just put it that way. It's not like, Bernie Sandoff or Bernie Madoff or something like that. It wasn't at that level, but it wasn't, pennies either. And it was probably about 6 weeks after the investigation was opened that my mother passed away. And again, that was a very difficult time in my life because I no longer had a job. The IRS finally caught on to what was going on and was alerted by this federal investigation, like, hey, this is an open investigation against one of your employees. And since it was serious enough that they felt needed to be alerted, they basically let me go. So I didn't have a job. My one true mentor and, guiding light in my life was gone. I had not yet met my father. Well, I mean, I had met him a couple times, but he wasn't a consistent part of my life at that time. Not yet. So I fell into a very deep depression. I call that probably the darkest time of my life. But in the middle of that darkest time, I, remembered a promise that I'd made my mother that I was going to go back to school. I was going to finish. I was going to actually get a degree this time and, make something better of myself. And with my nephew's help, we ended up, going to another school, another college, and I enrolled in web design and animation. My nephew enrolled in criminal justice. He did not finish, unfortunately. We were both charged and convicted of second-degree felonies of fraudulently obtaining housing benefits. Since my mother was not around to take the brunt of the charges, guess who most of that fell onto? This guy right here. You can't see my finger because it's being hidden by the microphone, so we'll use this hand. There we go. Yeah. So I served 30 days in jail, which is no big deal, especially since I was on work release. They had me in like a padded cell. Well, not padded, but it was a jail cell for overnight. Anytime that I'm not, out doing what I need to do, I was basically in a jail cell and serving my time. Served my time, 30 days. Again, no big deal. And from there, ended up graduating with an associate's degree this time. Yay. And started on my little adventure called web development. Took the associate's degree and converted that into basically a career that I'm very happy and I'm very fortunate to have. Even now as I'm, struggling to find work. But, I'm able to take that career and I was able to build a business. I was able to build two businesses. Well, one business if you count the fact that they're just under different names. But yeah. But built a business. I ended up building a podcast network out of that business. I ended up cultivating countless friendships, associationships, all these different people that I've met along the way. From the McLean Lindquists, from the, guys over at Basement Pros, all the way down to, people like James Scott, who just recently announced his departure from across the pond. People like, Ransom Widener, who's the lead singer for King Nico and for Zodiac Empire. All these amazing, wonderful, talented people that I've been able to, come across in my life. I owe a huge chunk of that to that one decision that I made back in 2009. that I wasn't going to just sit around and just wait to die. That I was going to get up, that I was going to do what I needed to do, that I needed to, actually accomplish something with my life, and that I wasn't just going to be a victim of the system. And I've been able to work far longer and a far better rate than I could ever hope to have accomplished if I had just sat around. So I owe a great deal of gratitude to all the people that helped make that possible. My nephew for convincing me that it was time to actually go do something. All the teachers and the, students at the college, that helped me get where I need to go. And even, some of the other people that were in my life, whether it be friends, girlfriends, roommates, whatever it may be, a lot of those people were also very instrumental in helping me succeed. And I would not have done any of that if they weren't there as, moral support. But I would also be remiss in saying that for every good roommate, for every Judo, for every Sean McKinney, for every, Anita Putney, for every Mitzi Nowling, and I'm sorry that I'm dropping names randomly on this podcast, and nobody outside of maybe a few select people even know who any of those people are, except for James Scott and McLean Lindquist, who have been on the show before. Go check those out, the archives. It's awesome. For every good roommate, there have been 4 or 5 terrible roommates. If they weren't actively trying to sabotage my efforts and my life, they were unintentionally, railroading me out of, opportunities. And a lot of those roommates did not last very long for obvious reasons. And for every, I'm not going to drop her actual name, but she knows who I'm talking about. Tiger, I'm talking about you. Yeah. For every Tiger, there have been 6 or 7 just terrible influences in my life, whether they be girlfriends or just casual friends. Just absolutely horrible people. Tiger's one of the good ones. And to this day, I am grateful for having her in my life, for having the kids in my life. And for those 6 or 7, terrible influences, I mean, how do you even describe like some of the stuff that they've done? Some of the things that they've, done to either completely destroy my life, try to completely destroy my life, or, stand by and do nothing as others are accusing me of just ridiculous stuff that I would never even be capable of doing. Not even on my worst day. Or if they're not doing that, they're basically saying, I want all the attention on me. I get that you have a business and you have, things that you need to do professionally, but it's all about me. And I'm not going to spend too much time ragging on those people. I'm basically using that as an example of where I've been and the road that I've, gone down. They don't deserve having their names dropped on here. Because number one, I'm over it. I'm past that. I'm, past all the pettiness and all the, the BS that they've introduced into my life. And number two, it's just not worth it. It's not worth the energy to spend on people that just no longer matter. And they just don't. Period. So why do I bring all of this up? Why do I bring up everything that's happened up to this point? I mean, basically my life story. I mean, everything from high school back. There's some stuff here and there. I mean, I may or may not have introduced political lobbyism into my high school class political infrastructure, all that stuff doesn't really matter because it didn't really affect me personally on a personal level past high school graduation, basically. There are some people that I've, met in high school that are absolutely amazing that I would probably drop everything and just be like, hey, let's go have a beer. But all that doesn't matter. What happened from the Air Force forward, that's what has, kind of helped shape me and mold me into the person that I am. Now, I will say that I did take broadcasting class in high school, so that probably explains why I have such a profound love for this microphone, even though it's dying. Yeah, so why do I bring all this up? Why do I dredge on the past? It's important to not really dredge or spend too much time thinking about the past, but it's important to use the past as kind of like a reference point. Yeah, the living situation that I'm in is not the greatest. In the summertime, it gets way too hot. It's why you hear a oscillating fan in the background, because it's literally probably not even 20 feet away from me, right over there. In the wintertime, it gets brutally cold. Like to the point where you saw it when I was filming some of those episodes back in January. I was wearing hoodies. Underneath those hoodies, it was like 2 or 3 more layers on top of that. It gets brutally cold in here during wintertime. And there's some other things here and there that I won't get into. But let's just say the living situation is not the most ideal in the world, but it's a lot better than the attic that I was living in years ago, where all of the heat from the dryer that was in the basement was coming up through the house into the attic where I was sleeping, basically making it an oven. This stuff that's going on right now, this is nothing. Try living in an oven. Maybe not a literal oven, but an oven. Try living in that. This is mild compared to that. And yeah, the microphone issues. Yeah, I do kind of want to get a new microphone eventually, sooner rather than later. But I'm thankful for the one that I have. I can at least, post production the shit out of it. Sorry, I don't mean to swear. Just blurt that out. Post production me. I can post production, this to make it sound like gold ish. Okay, maybe bronze. And the roommates that I currently have, my brother and my sister-in-law, yeah, there are days where they go without talking to me, which is fine. But at least it's not someone that's maybe 10 feet away from me blaring the Book of Mormon on audiobook on repeat. Yeah. So there's that. And at least my roommates aren't trying to get me involved into insurance fraud this time. So I'm thankful for that. The job that I have right now, it's not the greatest. It's not the best. It's not even full time. But it's better than what I had 10 years ago. It's better than what I had 12 years ago. It's a better boss than I had during that time. I can promise you that. Now, is it, paying me 6 figures a year? No. But it's keeping the lights on. It's keeping the internet on for me to be able to do what I need to do. So that's nice, at least. And yeah, I may be currently living off of, essentially free food. But it's better than waking up at 2 a.m. to go to McDonald's or Village Inn and camp out there and then come back at 6 a.m. wondering when I'm going to get my next meal. As my girlfriend at the time basically is cheating on me. So, there's that. The point of the last 33 minutes, if there is going to be a point, is that it's important that we learn from our previous mistakes. It's important that we not forget about the past, because that's the worst thing that you can possibly do. Because if you're forgetting about what you've done and you're forgetting about the past, you're not learning the lessons. That's the critical part about everything that's happened up to this point in your life, is you need to learn from the lessons of whether it be, failed relationships or failed ventures or, horrible things that have happened in your life. And I'm sure everyone that's listening to this right now has had horrible things happen in their lives. I know it. No one goes through this unscathed. No one goes through this game called life without a few bruises and a few scrapes. No one. They may not always be visible physically, but they're there. Sometimes they're mental, or emotional, or even spiritual. But it's important that we learn from that. And it's important that we not really accept, but more appreciate. That's the word I'm looking for. We appreciate what we have now. And we do our best to really look at everything that's in our lives right now on a positive scale. Could it be better? Yes. Potentially. And it always should be our goal as human beings to better ourselves and to better our position and to better our lives. Now, it could be that you want to be happier in life. Cool. I want that for you. I want you to be happier. Could it be more successful in business? Like bringing in more money, bringing in more revenue, bringing in more clients. Then, I wish that for you too. Better job? Awesome. Better promotion? Even better. We should always strive for better. But we should also not lose sight of what we have. And part of that process is looking back and saying, okay, yeah, this isn't so bad. Because I've experienced worse. It's like a saying that I've always said. I look at everything that's going on in my life right now. Being underemployed, underpaid. Business is not doing too great right now. I've got like maybe one client that I'm working with right now. All the other ones, it's mostly just, SEO work at this point. The podcast is not doing as well as I would hope. I mean, viewership on the reels or shorts, I should say, on YouTube has gone up, but everything else is just kind of flatlined. And that's probably on me. Not advertising or, promoting or doing all the things that need to be done on my end. And I get that. But it could be worse. It can always be worse. The reason why I stay as positive as I do, mostly, there are some moments like a couple nights ago where I was not in a good headspace at all. That's what happens when someone will post videos of Hulk Hogan promoting Donald Trump on Facebook. But we're not going to get into that here. The reason I stay as positive as I do, most of the time, is because of the experiences in my life that have led me to this point. If everything from yesterday back hasn't killed me yet, hasn't taken me down, hasn't defeated me, hasn't put me into a corner curled up in a ball listening to some sad song. I think it's called Golden Hour, I can't remember, but on repeat, bawling my eyes out, just waiting to die. If all those experiences haven't done that to me yet, I win. I've made it to this point in my life. I win. you've made it to this point in your life without feeling defeated, without feeling, like, what's the point anymore? Why should I even carry on? Why should I live? If you haven't gotten to that point yet, by now, you win. I want everyone listening to this to win at life. I don't care what it is. If it's being more happy, if it's being more successful, if it's being, being able to travel more, being able to raise a family, being able to provide for your family that you already have, whatever that is, I want you to win. I want that for you. I don't care who you are. I want you to win. I am rooting for you. And if you've made it to this point in the video, I would appreciate it if you left a review at Spotify. If you like the video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. That way, anytime a new video drops, you are alerted. Even shorts. I don't really release shorts on Life Talk, but some of the other channels, yeah. And if you made it to this point and you're watching this on Facebook, like the video, like the channel, like the page, I should say, on Facebook. That way you're, constantly following, some of the posts that I'm making, so I'm not constantly sharing on my personal page, because that may or may not be an option going forward. Yeah. But like the video, comment, share. Sharing is caring. Share with friends, share with family. As I always say, if this message can reach at least 5 people and it resonates with them and it, impacts them in a positive way and saying, you know what, this guy is right. I do need to look at things more positively. I do need to, look at my past and say, this is nothing. This right here in 2024, I mean, you know how long ago the pandemic was? Yeah. This is nothing. This is cakewalk. It's fine. Share with people. If it resonates with at least 5 people, I will have done my job. At least I will feel like I've done my job. And with the way things are going right now, we could all use a little bit more positivity in our lives. So I want to thank everyone for liking, for listening, for downloading, for donating, for doing everything you can to help support the podcast and the whole Closing Tag Network. Your efforts are not going unnoticed. So thank you. And until next time, please, whatever it is you want out of life, grab it. I want that for you. I want you to be able to be successful, as long as it's not hurting others. Also, remember to include your closing tags. Thank you. This has been a Galactic Digital Studios production.